I'm gearing up to confront the guy my wife's been seeing behind my back today. 3 months ago, I caught them red-handed and confronted her about the affair. She was incredibly remorseful, begging for forgiveness and insisting that she still wanted to be with me. She promised to do whatever it took to fix our marriage, counseling and all the rest. We've been attending both couples and individual counseling sessions. On the surface, she's been saying everything I want to hear, declaring her love for me, expressing a desire to mend things, and asserting that she doesn't want a divorce. She even gave me access to her phone, though she made it clear she'd prefer if I didn't snoop around. She insists she's committed to rebuilding our trust. However, she's still seeing him. I discovered this but kept it to myself. I'm planning to serve her with divorce papers tomorrow. But first, I need to confront her affair partner to uncover any additional lies she's been telling. I know they've spoken on the phone numerous times since I demanded she cut off all contact. She swears she hasn't been in touch with him, but phone records tell a different story. They exchange texts almost daily, though she's clearly deleting them from her phone. The thing is, she doesn't realize that deleting messages from her phone doesn't erase them from her iPad. So here I am, parked outside his house, waiting to see if either he or his wife leaves for work. If he heads out first, I plan to follow him to his workplace and confront him there. If she leaves before him, I'll take the chance to knock on his door directly. Starting with last night, I came home from work, made dinner, and sat down to eat. My wife asked how my day went, and I responded with a curt, uneventful. That was all I said. We went through the evening routine as if everything was fine, dinner, playing with the kids, and putting them to bed. Afterward, we settled in our bedroom to watch TV, and she remained silent for nearly 2 hours. Finally, when our shows ended, she spoke up. I'm going to bed. And that was it. No confrontation, no discussion, just a brief statement before she went to bed. I stayed up playing video games for a few more hours before hitting the sack myself. I barely slept and woke up at 5 a.m. The plan for today was to serve her with divorce papers, following our marriage counseling session at lunch. I had already briefed our therapist about my intentions, so when we started the session, I didn't hold back. I spoke with the affair partner yesterday. Oh, I talked to him too. Yeah, I know. Why would you even talk to him? I needed answers since you weren't being truthful. And what did he say? He spilled everything about your affair, how you've been sneaking around, your secret meetings, all those lovey-dovey phone calls, everything. He told you all that? Yep, everything. I proceeded to list out every detail I already knew, their texts, calls, meetings, dates, and times. She began to cry. It's clear to me that while you've been saying one thing here, your actions have been telling a completely different story. So I'm done. What do you mean you're done? Handing her the divorce papers. I want a divorce. She took the papers as if they were a dangerous snake, staring at them with a mix of shock and fear. She then turned to the therapist for support. What do I do now? I don't want a divorce. I want you. I want our life. I want to stay. Therapist, do you understand where confronting AP is coming from? When your words and actions are at odds, actions always speak louder than words. Your actions have made it clear what I need to know. How do we move forward from here without conflict, without bitterness, and without dragging our kids through the mess? The rest of the session was unexpectedly civil. We both cried. Me from the betrayal and anger over her ongoing affair, and her over the disintegration of her life as she knew it. I informed her that I had cut off her access to our finances and that she could use half of what we have to hire a divorce attorney. I also told her she could no longer stay in our home and needed to find accommodation with family or friends. I made it clear that there was no chance for reconciliation. She cried even harder. As we left the appointment, she grabbed my hand, trying one last desperate plea for forgiveness. I pulled away and firmly told her that it was over and that I didn't want her in my life anymore. She collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. I walked out, leaving her there. As I drove away from the therapist's office, I called AP's wife and left a voicemail saying, "I really need to speak with you. Please call me back ASAP." Then I contacted my attorney, instructing her to file the divorce papers, but to hold off on the temporary restraining order unless things turned nasty. My wife called and texted me multiple times after I left, but I ignored them and haven't listened to the messages yet. Feeling emotionally numb, I headed to her parents' house. Just as I was about to enter, my phone rang. It was AP's wife returning my call. He hadn't told her anything, so I asked if we could meet in an hour. She agreed, and we arranged a time and place. At her parents' house, I laid everything out. Her mom started crying immediately, while her dad remained stoic. I told them I loved their daughter and had tried to make things work, but I couldn't stay in a marriage where she continued to cheat on me. They seemed completely stunned, and it was hard to gauge their reactions. I assured them I wouldn't badmouth her to friends or family, but they deserved to know the real reason for our divorce. I told them I didn't expect them to side with me, but hoped they would support her, as she would need it. My priority was our kids. If she couldn't afford a decent place to live, I didn't want them living in poor conditions while with her. Her parents could and should support her financially. I expressed my affection for them and my regret at losing our relationship. I shook her dad's hand and hugged her mom before leaving. I then drove to meet AP's wife. Now, I'm sitting in the car, waiting for her to arrive. I plan to tell her everything, possibly show her the video, and let her decide how she wants to proceed. If she needs emotional support, I'm willing to offer it. No one should go through this alone. So that's been my day. I still need to meet with AP's wife, pick up my kids from school, and change the locks on my house. I've set up a security system to capture any potential theft or damage. She knows about the system, so I'm not too concerned about her causing trouble. Soon enough, AP's wife arrived at our meeting spot. As soon as I got out of the car, I could see she sensed something was off. She tried to play it cool and friendly, but I could tell she knew something was wrong. I said to her, "I need to tell you something that's not going to be pleasant or easy to hear. I'm really sorry this is happening to both of us. My wife and your husband have been having an affair." She broke down in tears immediately. I had to press on. "I found out about it 3 months ago." At that, her eyes flashed with pure rage. 3 months ago? Why the hell are you telling me this only now?" I had to explain the whole situation, how I found out, what I did when I confronted my soon-to-be ex-wife, and how we've been trying to save our marriage through counseling. She listened, nodding along until I reached the part where I discovered they were still seeing each other. Then, the tears started flowing again. I need to pause here. As I write this, I'm crying. It feels awful to share someone else's pain, like I'm just spreading their misery. She didn't deserve this. Honestly, I feel terrible about telling her. She had no clue. She said she wondered why I contacted her and had a bad feeling about her husband, but she had no idea about the affair, that it involved my wife, or that the relationship continued even after being exposed. Her whole world was shattered. Then I asked if she wanted to see the video. It's almost funny in hindsight. She thought I had a sex tape and was initially disgusted at the idea of seeing that. I clarified, "No, I met with your husband yesterday, confronted him about everything, and he admitted to it. I have a video of that conversation." She thought it over and agreed she wanted to see it. I had edited the video down from about 20 minutes of him dodging questions and lying into a concise 60-second clip. I played it for her. In it, he apologizes, admits his mistakes, and shares more details about their ongoing affair. She started crying again the moment she saw his face on screen. I stopped the video and asked if she was sure she wanted to continue. She nodded, so I let it play through. At this point, there wasn't much more to say. I apologized for being the bearer of such terrible news. She thanked me for opening her eyes. I told her I understood exactly how she felt because I was in the same place 3 months ago when I found out. I offered her my support if she needed to talk, vent, or scream. She thanked me, we hugged, and that was the end of it. I have no idea what her next steps will be, but I'm sure it won't be good for AP. I genuinely feel for her and her children. I got back in the car and headed home. My phone had been blowing up with messages from my soon-to-be ex-wife since I left earlier. I checked the security footage at home and saw she hadn't arrived yet, so I went there. When I arrived, she was sitting in the driveway smoking. The moment she saw my car, she started shouting, "You told my fucking parents, you low-life piece of shit!" I turned on my phone's recording and tucked it in my shirt pocket to capture everything. I got out of the car, she was blocking the garage, and said, "Yes, I did. They deserve to know the truth about why we're getting divorced. I didn't lie or make anything up. I told them the truth and said they should support you." Her rage seemed to deflate instantly. She went from furious to a sobbing mess in seconds. She apologized repeatedly, asking how she could make things right, claiming she never wanted any of this. I listened until she ran out of words and then said, "I said everything I needed to say at the therapist's office today. I have nothing more to add. I'll pick up the kids from school and handle dinner. You can take some things, but you can't stay here tonight. I suggest you stay with your parents." This set her off again. "You can't keep me from my children." "No," I said. "I'm not trying to keep you from our children. But given your current state, I don't think it's best for them to see you like this. I'll tell them you went to stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a few days because Grandpa is sick and Grandma needs help around the house. They'll understand and won't question it. But we need to decide how and when we'll tell them the truth, and it needs to be done before the week is out." She started sobbing once more. My heart ached seeing the woman I loved, the one I married, reduced to this raw, emotional state. I hugged her, told her I was sorry for what was happening, but that this was the outcome of her choices. I couldn't remain married to someone who treated me like this. We embraced for a long time, with her crying on my shoulder. Eventually, she pulled away and tried to kiss me. I stepped back and said, "That's not going to happen." She broke down again, and I walked into the house. In the kitchen, I poured myself a strong drink. After about 20 minutes, I heard her come inside. She quietly went to our bedroom and began packing a suitcase. I stayed put until she came into the kitchen with her bag. "I hope you're happy," she said. "I'm not happy at all," I replied. "I didn't want this. I wanted you, us, a wife who would love me and treat me well. Instead, I got this, so no, I'm not happy." She yelled, "Then why are you doing this? Why are you throwing away everything we have?" "I'm not," I said. "You threw it all away when you went back to AP. I'm just cleaning up the mess." She hurled more obscenities at me, but I refused to engage. When she saw I wasn't going to react, she stormed out, slamming the door so hard it knocked a picture frame off the wall. I heard her screech out of the driveway and leave. I finished my drink and replayed the video of her shouting at me. If things get messy, I have enough footage to protect myself legally. I picked up the kids from school, brought them home, and explained that Mom would be staying with Grandma and Grandpa for a few days. They were sad but didn't ask many questions. We spent time playing, had dinner, and are now getting ready for bed. I haven't heard from my ex, AP, or AP's wife for a few hours. The house will be very quiet once the kids are in bed, and honestly, I might just pour myself a few more drinks before calling it a night. I already mentioned I talked to AP's wife on Friday. She shared that she isn't ready to end her marriage just yet. They're working on it, seeing a counselor, and trying to make things right. They have kids together, and I understand why she's fighting to save her marriage. I did the same thing when I was in her shoes. Their children don't know anything about this mess. I genuinely wish them the best and hope they can find a way through it. She asked me not to contact her while they're sorting things out, and I fully intend to respect that. I really hope they can work things out. On Friday, my wife and I had another therapy session focused solely on how to tell the kids. She pleaded with me not to go through with the divorce, begging me repeatedly. I told her that her decision was made when she went back to AP after I explicitly told her not to. She insisted they hadn't slept together again after I found out which is a lie, and that she hadn't discussed our situation with him, another lie. When I confronted her with what I knew yet again, she broke down, admitting she knew what she was doing was wrong, but didn't think about the consequences. She claimed she just needed someone to confide in AP because she couldn't talk to anyone else about it. Like me, her husband, who she was supposed to be working things out with. Even when I consider forgiving her and giving it another chance, the lies and deception pull me back. She keeps digging herself deeper with her dishonesty. Her lies come so easily that I can't ever trust her again. It's like she believes them herself, and if I weren't so informed, I might fall for it. But I know better. So even when I want to embrace her, kiss her, and tell her everything will be okay, the thought of her lies keeps me focused on moving forward separately. So, we told the kids on Friday night. It was devastating. They grasp what was happening and are a complete wreck. They're angry at her for having a boyfriend and mad at me for leaving Mom. She really didn't want me to mention the boyfriend, but I stood my ground on that point. Their first therapy appointment is scheduled for Friday. I'm not sure how it will go, but I hope it helps them start processing their emotions. Meanwhile, I'm trying to balance being firm as a disciplinarian with allowing them to express their grief and confusion. It's a tricky balancing act. Yes, it's okay to be angry and cry. No, it's not okay to destroy your toys because you're upset. Stuff like that. STBXW came back to the house on Friday night, and for now, we're cohabitating until we figure out who's moving out and when. We'll need to sell the house. There's no way I can afford to keep it while paying child support and alimony, no matter how much it turns out to be. With the housing market being down right now, we've agreed to wait until spring to put it on the market in hopes of getting a better price. The next 4 months can't pass quickly enough for me. Christmas is going to be pretty miserable. I can't even bring myself to put up decorations. Trying to celebrate anything right now feels completely alien. I will put up the tree, though. I want the kids to have as normal a Christmas as possible. I just need to find the energy and mental space to drag the tree out of storage and set it up. She's sleeping on the couch. As much as I'd like to rise above this and offer her our bed, I just can't bring myself to do it. I've put a lock on the bedroom door and lock it every morning before I leave, so she can't get in and mess with my stuff. For now, she's using the guest bathroom and keeping some clothes in a suitcase. Call it petty or whatever you want, but she left me. I'm going to sleep in my bed at night and let her deal with the couch. First off, I want to reassure you that things have continued to be cordial, respectful, and generally amicable. The tension was palpable during the first week, but as we all settle into our new normal, things have calmed down considerably. It's surprising, but also comforting, to see that despite everything, we're managing to navigate this transition with a degree of civility. It gives me hope that we can continue to settle things amicably, especially given how respectful we've been towards each other throughout this process. I know it's hard to believe, given everything she put me through, but she's been straightforward and honest about things lately, and I've remained resolute in my decision to move forward, despite one notable exception. On a brighter note, putting up the Christmas decorations turned out to be a surprisingly positive experience. The kids had an absolute blast. We played Christmas music, watched Christmas movies, and really leaned into the festive spirit without taking it too seriously. STBXW got involved as well. Since she's still living in the house, I couldn't exactly keep her from helping. She supervised the kids as they hung ornaments on the tree, while I was outside putting up lights. When I came in, we all enjoyed hot cocoa and watched Christmas Vacation together. I sat on one side of the kids, she sat on the other. It felt different, but we made it work for the kids' sake. It was a reminder of the importance of maintaining some semblance of normalcy and making the holidays special for them, even if it's a bit bittersweet. Regarding the kids' therapy, the first session was a lot of paperwork and introductions. It was clear that the kids were a bit guarded, with me and STBXW present, which I think contributed to their shyness. However, the second session seemed to be more productive. We began together discussing the situation, and then the therapist asked if we could step out for a bit. We waited outside while the therapist talked to the kids alone. When we returned, the kids shared their feelings, expressing sadness, confusion, and a strong desire for us not to get divorced. They were upset about having to live in separate houses and were visibly distressed. STBXW, sitting there with tears streaming down her face, said, "I don't want that either." I was taken aback. My first reaction was one of disbelief, and I nearly said, "Well, you shouldn't have had an affair then." But I held back, focusing on what was most important for the moment. I responded, "I don't want that either," but it felt like I was merely echoing her sentiments. I then turned to the therapist and asked if we could speak privately before we left. The therapist took us aside for the last few minutes of the session and laid into STBXW. She called out her manipulative behavior and said she needed to stop painting me as the bad guy if we were to co-parent effectively. She emphasized that if STBXW truly didn't want a divorce, she should have considered the consequences of her actions during the affair. Hearing the therapist say everything I'd been feeling but couldn't articulate was a huge relief. It felt validating to have someone else address the issues so directly. That evening, STBXW apologized for what had transpired during the therapy session. She said she would be more mindful of how her words and actions affect the kids. While I appreciated the apology, it also felt like a small consolation, given the magnitude of what we're dealing with. I'm hopeful that she'll follow through on her commitment to be more considerate in the future. Outside of the emotional upheaval, work is going well, and Christmas preparations are coming along. The house is a bit more festive now, and I'm doing my best to create a pleasant environment for the kids during this difficult time. Now, the part I'm struggling with, the accidental sex with STBXW. It's a significant exception to my resolve and has left me feeling conflicted. Here's how it happened. Rewind to the night we decorated the Christmas tree. It had been a joyful day with the kids, filled with festive activities and fun. We finished the evening watching It's a Wonderful Life, which is STBXW's favorite Christmas movie. Throughout the night, we'd been sipping on eggnog and brandy. Between the warm feelings and the warmth of the brandy, my judgment was clouded. STBXW leaned over and kissed my neck softly. I turned to her, and despite the nagging voice in my head telling me to stop, I found myself giving in. We ended up having sex, and while it felt like a moment of genuine connection, I was filled with regret as soon as it was over. I realized that despite all the progress I've made, I'd let my guard down and acted against my better judgment. The act itself was pleasurable, but it was overshadowed by the realization of how far I'd strayed from my original intent. I told her right after that it didn't change anything between us. I still want a divorce, and this couldn't be a sign of going back to the way things were. She agreed, but part of me questions whether her agreement is genuine or just another temporary measure. I'll need to discuss this lapse with my therapist and our marriage counselor to understand its implications and ensure it doesn't derail my progress. I'm also scheduling an STD test as a precaution. It's a necessary step, though it's frustrating and unpleasant. I'm relieved that I don't have to worry about a surprise pregnancy due to my vasectomy, but the rest of it is a troubling reminder of the complexities of this situation. It's been a challenging time, balancing the emotional turmoil with the need to stay focused on moving forward. Despite everything, I'm doing my best to maintain normalcy for the kids and keep moving toward a resolution. I'm hoping for a bit of peace and clarity as we continue navigating this difficult period. Let me start by acknowledging that my wife and I ultimately decided to stay together. Yes, I know this might disappoint many of you. I've wrestled with feelings of disappointment in myself for much of last year. We're not back to 100%, and I can't say for sure that we ever will be, but things have definitely improved. It took about 9 months of intense therapy, both individual and couples therapy, as well as therapy with our kids, to get to this point. We both had to be willing to forgive, move on, and put in the work to rebuild what was broken. To be honest, I consider it something of a miracle that we've come this far. Here's how it all unfolded. After my last update, I made it clear to my wife that we wouldn't be sleeping together again. We continued attending couples therapy, and gradually, she started opening up about her thoughts, feelings, and what led her to reconnect with AP. By around March, it became evident that something had changed in both of us. We weren't just going through the motions anymore. We were genuinely expressing ourselves to each other. She admitted to having deep-seated fears of losing herself in the roles of wife and mother. She was searching for something missing in her life, and unfortunately, tried to find it outside our marriage. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I was duped. I truly believe she was struggling with a sense of being lost, and was searching for something she felt was missing. Yes, she should have looked for that with me, but she didn't. I've chosen to forgive her for that. I shared all my hurt, pain, and how deeply my trust had been shattered. I was scared of getting hurt again. Honestly, I still am to some extent. I know that anything can happen. But I've decided to let go of my need to control every aspect of our relationship and instead placed my faith in her commitment to never betray me again. It's not just faith. I find a great deal of inner peace in having a plan. That's who I am. I need to plan and work through details. Having a plan for what I would do if I ever suspected her loyalty again gives me strength and helps me keep the hurt at bay. For months, her betrayal and lies consume my thoughts, but now, I rarely think about it. She has not reached out to, contacted, or checked in on AP in over a year. I know this because I have access to her phone, laptop, and Facebook messages, which she agreed to allow. At first, I was tempted to check her devices daily. It was hard to resist the urge to scrutinize every message and question every contact. However, over time, my need to monitor her closely subsided. I would still check in randomly and without warning to ensure she was being truthful. But I haven't done so in about 2 months now, and I don't plan to unless something raises my suspicions. Therapy has played a significant role in helping me manage these feelings. I haven't been in touch with AP or his wife since my last communication with her in December of last year. I'm fine with that. I see from Facebook that they're still together, but I don't dwell on it or check it frequently. I've adjusted my settings to avoid seeing her profile in my newsfeed and haven't checked it in 3 to 4 months. I no longer care about their lives or what happens to them. We've distanced ourselves from the social circle we used to frequent and have formed new friendships. The old group wasn't necessarily toxic, but their priorities didn't align with the kind of life we wanted to lead. They were very social and outgoing, often involving excessive drinking, drug use, and a focus on money and social status. While they were nice people, they weren't the right fit for us. Our new group of friends is fantastic, still social and lively, but without the negative elements. We spent New Year's Eve with our old group last year and ended up hungover and feeling unwell on New Year's Day. This year, with our new friends, we had a great time, but we got home with the kids early enough to enjoy ourselves and have a pleasant New Year's Day. Our kids are aware that we've decided to stay together. Over the summer around June or July, we decided to put the divorce proceedings on hold. It was originally scheduled to be finalized in March or April, but we chose to delay it. Sorting through our belongings and deciding who would keep what was emotionally taxing, but it also played a part in her willingness to open up and work on our marriage, and in my decision to give it another chance. We explained to the kids that we were no longer going to divorce, that sometimes parents need to work through difficult issues, and that we were committed to trying to make things work. By August, STBXW had moved back into our bedroom, and I took the lock off the door. Life isn't perfect, but it's undeniably better. Each day, things seem to improve a little more. On Christmas, my wife expressed to me how deeply sorry she is for everything she put me through, and how she's committed to working every day to rebuild my trust and love. I do love her, and in many ways, I think I love her even more now. I understand better how couples can navigate through such a crisis and come out stronger. We've planned a family vacation this spring during the kids' spring break, and we're all really looking forward to it. We continue with our weekly couples therapy sessions and are both engaged in individual therapy on a regular basis outside of our joint sessions. Our marriage counselor has expressed amazement at how we've managed to handle everything and how we persist in our efforts to heal the fractures in our marriage. It hasn't been easy, far from it, but it's definitely easier now than it was. I want to be as clear as possible about what we did to get to this point. I realize that my previous posts might have been somewhat vague, so I want to outline specifically what worked for us. I'm no expert, but maybe sharing our approach will help someone else. Therapy. We engaged in both individual and couples therapy. For me, therapy was instrumental in understanding my own shortcomings as a man, a husband, and a father. It helped me find clarity, regain my confidence, and heal from the betrayal. My wife's individual therapy was crucial for her as well. It helped her confront her own issues as a wife and mother, and ultimately, it helped her decide if she truly wanted reconciliation or if she was better off going her own way. Once she chose to reconcile, our couples therapy sessions provided us with a roadmap to navigate our way forward and envision what our life could look like on the other side of this crisis. Commitment to the common goal. We both committed to working towards rebuilding our relationship. This meant fully investing ourselves in the process and putting in the work outside of therapy sessions. Here are some key practices that made a difference for us. Radical honesty. We made a pact to be completely honest with each other. Whenever I felt something, I communicated it to her. Whenever she felt something, she shared it with me. We didn't hold back our feelings. I made sure to be fully present when she spoke, setting aside distractions to truly listen. She did the same for me. This level of openness helped bridge many gaps and rebuild trust. Daily check-ins. Each night after the kids went to bed, we would sit down and check in with each other. We talked about our day, our plans for the next day, and how we were feeling about our relationship. These conversations were challenging at first, but over time, they became a natural and anticipated part of our routine. They've had a significant positive impact on our relationship. Asking each other questions. We went back to the phase of our relationship where we were discovering each other. People change, and we wanted to understand the people we had become. We found lists of questions online ranging from simple ones like, "What's your favorite color?" to deeper ones like, "What would you do if one of your parents died right now?" We worked through these lists together. It became a fun and enlightening process of rediscovering each other. Acts of service. We found a Christian-based guide to repairing marriages after infidelity that emphasized doing acts of service for one another. These ranged from small gestures like writing a note or doing a chore to more significant acts like planning a date night or taking a weekend trip together. These acts, though sometimes small, played a big role in rebuilding trust and demonstrating our commitment to each other. Simple things like when she took out the trash for me when I was working late made a big difference. Stopping the dwelling. This was one of the hardest parts for me. I had to actively choose not to engage in thoughts that dragged me down. This decision was liberating, allowing me to focus my energy on more positive aspects of life. Whenever I felt myself slipping into negative thoughts, I would distract myself, whether through exercise, watching something funny, or spending time with the kids. Over time, I found myself thinking about the past less and less. I hope this doesn't come across as preachy. I'm not trying to dictate what others should do. I genuinely believe that some couples are better off apart, and I felt that way about us for a significant part of this past year. However, some couples can make it work, and I believe we are one of those couples. I can't judge your situation any better than you can judge mine from the outside. But for now, I truly believe that we will be together for the long haul.